Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Yes, good afternoon. It is indeed 12:11 p.m. in the afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, you are tuned into Relaks Radio. This is The Buzz, and you are tuned in with your hosts, DJ Kings and Tim. We talk everything entrepreneurship, everything finances, everything business, and everything technology. Make sure we keep your pockets high and your problems low. So make sure you tell a friend to tell a friend, tell your dog, and we're making sure that everyone gets rich today. Ladies and gentlemen, this is The Buzz.
That's right, everyone.
So today we'll be talking about, Tim, what do you think we'll be talking about today?
We've got a couple of topics around. Now we were talking about Jeff Bezos yesterday, right?
Yeah.
And bringing Jeff Bezos into the conversation with regards to his business, where he's got to, where he is. There's so much that people need to understand that it's just not a matter of jumping there or dreaming what you want. You need it's millions of little steps. So how did Amazon get to where they are? How did wherever these guys are moving to, how are they looking at improving or going to? It's little steps in the company. And we've also got a conversation around how when you're talking about Facebook, when you're talking about Google, there's different countries that basically allow different laws, Facebook and Google. And with regards, we also spoke just yesterday, about how your mobile phone can be a tracking device or learning device for yourself from all these
Indeed.
apps. And
Indeed, yeah.
with the Hong Kong privacy laws that are coming in, it's not the I'd say it's not the best time for companies to basically these two companies to look at performing at their usual pace, because I mean, with these laws coming in, obviously, I mean, I'd say possibly because of the concern of the privacy of the citizens and the laws that they have, they might not be able to perform at their best. So
Yeah,
Google
indeed,
and
yeah.
Facebook, there are other tech companies as well. So when we talk about Facebook, we're talking about Instagram and WhatsApp as well. So if they
Yeah.
basically don't perform at their best, we're talking about how they might have to pull back or let their competitors in. And maybe just another story similar to Didi and Uber, we might
Yeah.
see some different stories in comparison to the rest of the world.
Yeah, so indeed, yesterday we did speak about how Didi was under investigation with the cyberspace watchdogs for illegal use of personal data. Like, what's it? They were afraid that Didi would have ended up using their data in an illegal fashion. Now we have the exact same issue here today, where Facebook, Twitter, and Google have threatened to quit Hong Kong over proposed data laws. And what I mean by this is the fact that Google have privately warned, all of these tech companies have privately warned Hong Kong government that they could stop offering their services in the city if the authorities proceed with planned changes to data protection laws. And this basically could make them liable to malicious sharing of individuals' information online. This in itself, we already know that sharing of private data can be very damaging to not necessarily just an individual, but a whole nation. Because at the end of the day, there's so much that we already don't know whenever it comes down to, let's just say, a government. It doesn't have to be the UK, anywhere. There's some governments that have a lot of secrets that we don't know about. Data sharing, like things like data sharing law, like if it gets to the point where data sharing becomes illegal, like they've now overstepped their boundaries and being able to expose a lot of information that we shouldn't know about, it could be very damaging towards a country, and it could probably make it self-implode. So along with that, we've also got the fact that we also have a lot of things that we have on our phones that we don't need anybody else to know about. Exposing that could literally put ourselves at risk, so things like this change, making planned changes to their protection laws, which can make things, which could make Hong Kong a lot more capable of exposing individuals' information online, is pretty. Like, it's understandable as to why they want to quit it. It's understandable as to why they want to quit the government completely, and it's just not on really. So yeah, so far
just to, I mean, yeah, I mean, like when you're talking about,
You have Facebook,
you
Twitter,
know,
and WhatsApp and Instagram.
yeah, when you're talking
Yeah,
about
as you mentioned.
how Hong Kong has seen unprecedented waves of
Mm,
doxing. These are malicious spreads of private information, and you're talking
mm,
about pro-democracy protests in Hong Kong back in
mm,
2019. Right now, this was a very big protest. Now, I mean, if you're not aware of this, they came to a point where basically the push for progress in terms of a democracy, because we know China is basically a communist operation. There was
yeah.
so much of there was a strong fight against the police or the government in terms of where and what these guys were going to do with the reduction in terms of the communist activities going on. Like people
Mm,
wanted like Hong Kong, we know, is a little separate, or it used to operate in a separate slightly different way in comparison to the rest of China. But there were a ton of mass pro democracy protests back in Hong Kong. Now these basically sided against the police, the politicians, journalists, also activists, right? And these had targeted their families. So now Hong Kong's chief executive, this is Carrie Lam. Now he's basically spoken on Tuesday as to how the only illegal doxing, and had said that the privacy commissioner would be happy to meet tech companies if they had concerns.
yeah.
And this reason alone, it shows quite a bit of significance in the lines of where a company can move, or you can look at how much of progress, and how much of restrictions a company will have, or a country will have. How
Mm,
a company like Facebook or Google also can overcome challenges. You know that when McDonald's, for example, went to India,
yeah.
they had a big issue with their Big Mac, because of the fact that they started selling the Big Mac, but Indians were basically outraged because they don't eat beef, and
Yeah.
consider the cow holy. So
Mm,
I'd say if you're a big organization, you're looking at moving to different countries, you need to consider political, social, economic issues or concerns where you need to adjust. It's completely a different land, right?
yeah.
So maybe these guys will have to look at a way around it, or just pull back. What's your take?
Um, I first, sorry, we're talking on how are we speaking on how McDonald's was brought over to India, or just the whole
Yeah,
everyone the
maybe
whole.
talk about that, and also how if a company like Google or Facebook, tech companies
Mm,
basically, let's say Uber, for example, if they have to adjust, how they have to adjust to
I
countries
f-
like this and their rules and regulations.
I feel as though whenever it comes down to tech companies and being in a space that is pretty much like let's say China, for example, we know that you've already said that they're a communist country. I feel as though I feel as though they shouldn't have to. I feel as though I feel as though that they can adjust to whatever country that they are placed in. For example, because the primary, like say for example with Uber, the primary service of Uber is to literally offer. It's a ride-hailing app, so it's literally to offer a service to get from A to B. Now, if we go deep into that and then we speak on, the personal data behind all of that, everyone, the personal information of an individual, who this person's name is, their address, their bank card details, all of that stuff. And obviously,
Yeah,
there's a lot of rules, regulations, and protocols which pretty much prevents any of that from being released. Like we know that our phones know our bank details and stuff like that, but because of protocols, it can never be shared out. Otherwise, it gets classed as fraud. So, um, I feel as though, in terms of just offering it services, yes, I do feel it can adjust. But because of the type of
mm,
country that it's probably been placed in, there are probably some parts to, let's say, the contract or the policies that can't necessarily be changed, and I don't feel that those can be adjusted towards the way the country works because, as we've mentioned already yesterday, we've had an issue with personal data being threatened to be released or used in malicious intents. Today, we've also got the
Yeah,
same
yeah.
thing in Hong Kong. Like, I feel as though with these particular apps, Facebook, Twitter, and Google, they've already made the stand and said, we're not going to be involved in you if this is what you're planning on doing. And
Mm.
I feel as though with Uber, and hypothetically, I know this isn't actually the case, but hypothetically, with Uber, they should do the same. Like,
Yeah,
even though
correct.
their primary service is just to, offer a ride to get from A to B, if in the event that personal data can be used in malicious intent and be exposed to the public, or used in whichever way they like to, I don't know, gain ransom, gain money, whatever it is, to be able to morally demoralize an individual, then no,
Mm.
they should take the same stand as Facebook and all the other tech companies and step down too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Now, coming back to, I'd say, if you're breaking down things like this, we need to understand what. I think I'm just gonna quickly hop into maybe we can talk on the next talk segment on
Yeah.
how a bit of characteristics on Amazon and how these guys had come to such a big point, because we need to understand what takes companies this far. Now, like Jeff Bezos basically said, when it comes to Andy, and this is the next CEO of Amazon, the current CEO of Amazon, right? Now we know Jeff Bezos is basically stepping back as the chairman. He's stepping back as the CEO, but he is now the chairman. Where he's looking at going, where he's with all the adventures that this guy's basically looking at taking. There's a ton of I'd say considerations that you need to put in when it comes to the I'd say steps that you need to take to come to this point. You need to build a particular charisma or character within a company by itself, right?
Yeah.
So we'll actually quickly run into a couple of videos on Relax Radio and who we are. You're tuned in on The Buzz with Tim and DJ Kings. Make sure you're tuned in for the rest of the hour. The Buzz is going to be basically going on all the way till 3 p.m. We're breaking down how companies like Google, Facebook, and other tech companies are having and might have to quit working in Hong Kong over privacy laws. Now, we know the EU basically has their privacy laws, but they seem to be a little more, let's say, strict in Hong Kong. So now we know these can't really function in China, but Hong Kong is a different legislature. But as of now, as of last month, they seem to be having a slight amount of issues. So stay tuned. Right here, we'll be breaking down further for you. You're tuned in on The Buzz with Kings and Tim. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
climb Mount Everest. That is one of that's in my bucket list. You're laughing, but that is the facts right there. I'd love to do that. That is something I'm looking forward to do, hopefully.
Climb Everest.
Mount Everest. I mean, okay, not the very tip of Mount Everest, maybe the base camp at least.
You're talking about mental health. Well, if you went out and got some exercise in the fresh air, that would improve your mental health. It will make you feel better.
That's true. That is true. I wholeheartedly agree. But then for some people, it's how do you find the motivation to, especially when it comes to riding a bicycle, to do it again and again and again and again? It's a cycle that you have to be used to. How do you do it? What makes you wake up in the morning and decide, hey, I'm going to pick my bike up today. I'm going to cycle. What makes you want to do that?
What makes me want to do that?
Yeah. What do you like? What could you give listeners, like people listening in right now? What kind of tip could you give them?
Well, the first tip I would give them, if you haven't tried it before, try it. It can open up new horizons. It'll make you fitter. It will definitely make you fitter. Cycling is one of the best forms of aerobic exercise you can do.
It sounds like, I mean, if you think about it, yeah, it sounds like great fun. Because what essentially you're trying to say is also at the same time, when you, if you look at it from this perspective, with regards to mental health, especially when you look at it with mental health, this is another way to fight it. I feel like you go outside, you meet more people, you interact with, socially, you'll interact with more people, and you're keeping fit, you're making connections, you're breathing in the good and exhaling the bad. I feel like that's a great thing right there.
Absolutely. Yeah, you got a better way with words than I have, I'll tell you. But you're quite right. What you say there.
I mean, I've been doing this for quite some time. I mean, hey, you'll get the hang of it.
I'll be doing it for about 10 minutes now, so yeah.
That I can never really understand people staying in one room the whole day when you can have the world to see. I am a traveler. I travel. I love traveling. Traveling is just one of the things I do. And yeah, on top of my bucket list was, to one time, hopefully when I get there, go to Nepal and climb Mount Everest. That is one of that's in my bucket list. You're laughing, but that is the facts right there. I'd love to do that. That is something I'm looking forward to do, hopefully.
Climb Everest.
Mount Everest. I mean, okay, not the very tip of Mount Everest, maybe the base camp at least.
Base camp, yeah.
At least.
We should be able to cycle there.
Oh.
Now, there's a lot of conversation around who pays more taxes, if it is the rich or if it is the poor, right? But when you are basically going out and during a day, you go to a restaurant, you have to pay taxes there. If you buy a car, you have to pay taxes there. So why is it even a conversation that, the rich pay less taxes or the poor pay more taxes? Why is it a conversation like that?
Because it's true, the rich generally pay less tax. A rich person walks into a Tesco's or a Sainsbury's, they're not going to get a different bill than another person, right? They're still going to pay the same VAT on those goods, they're still going to pay the same thing. So that's all the same. However, the differences come in if you can pay yourself from your own company, you can structure it in a way that you pay less income tax through paying a bit of salary, paying dividends and so forth, and then also deferring income. Also, your pension payments or contributions can be different. So that increases your tax sort of gap, if you want to use it that way. Where a PAYE person just gets paid salary and bonus. And now those are the most highly taxed sources of income in the UK, definitely, in the UK. We've seen it, right? If an owner of a large public traded company does something wrong, irrelevant of what that company does or how valuable that company is, the stock generally falls into a pool of nothing, right? Because in a public company where the stock is traded openly on the stock exchange, the value of that stock is driven by supply and demand, it's driven by emotion, it's driven by news, it's driven by quite a lot of variables over and above the actual accounting or total net worth of that company. I mean, we've seen it, right? If an owner of a large public traded company does something wrong, irrelevant of what that company does or how valuable that company is, the stock generally falls into a pool of nothing. And the company may still have value and may still be doing quite a good things.
And that was just a few videos just to show you who we are. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back on the show. This is The Buzz. I am DJ Kings. This is Tim, and we are your hosts for this segment this afternoon, talking about business, entrepreneurship, everything finance, and everything technology. Remember, as I said, to keep your pockets fatter and to keep your problems lower. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, this is The Buzz.
That's right. Thanks, Kins, for the intro. We're now going into the topic of how Amazon operates with their work culture and where they're going, what the reason they are where they are. On customer obsession, it doesn't basically take you too long. I think we touched a bit on this of how, once you start working there, it doesn't take you too long to hear the words, customer centric or customer appealing, these concepts. Now, if you want to basically hear more about what's going on, understand what the conversation is about, maybe add or ask us questions, ask Kings and I questions. You can basically message us on 07852 473 473, or you can also comment on this video. You can, comment right here. You can comment on YouTube. We're live streaming on all these platforms. It's making it easy, convenient for you to reach us. Now, customer obsession basically works. It starts with the customer and works backwards. Now Amazon basically works vigorously to keep the customer trust, paying attention to competitors and also obsessing over what can actually give your customers, convenience or, ease of mind. I'd say, talking about ownership, inventing and simplifying things, ownership is what leaders do right now. They think long term. They don't sacrifice short term, long-term value for short-term results. They act on behalf of the entire company, and they believe in their team. They say that, they don't really say that, that some particular option or, to do is in their, they don't even consider if it is in their job description or not. They basically get the job done, right? And they lead by example. Inventing and simplifying things. This is what Amazon has been doing from day one. They've been basically, understanding what actually does the customer need in terms of design, or if not for Amazon during things like lockdown or e-commerce purchases, I'm sure Amazon has basically inspired so many people or companies. And if not for these, if not for online purchases, where would people get their goods from, right?
Yeah, it's true. That's a good point. Yeah,
exactly. It's been so rewarding. It's been very, I'd say, it's been very, future driven or future centric, also customer centric. And, when you're learning to be curious, when you're learning, when you how people are, sometimes with a closed mind, they think they know it all. They are the ones that actually seem to miss out on the most amount of things. But, just like us on, The Buzz, for example, we talk about innovative things on a daily basis. And, it's important to keep learning. It's important to keep understanding what's going on. So, these are good instincts. These basically seek and, I'd say, when you're curious about new possibilities and act to explore them, these will seek to improve, yourself and your company. Coming to, hiring and developing the best. Now, leaders raise the performance bar with every hire and promotion. And, they recognize exceptional talent. They willingly move them through the organization. Leaders develop leaders and, take their action seriously in, coaching others, working on behalf of people to invent mechanisms and, developing career-like choices. When you're talking about thinking big also, I'm going to come back just to one before, we jump back into the conversation of the Google and Facebook conversation. You need to think big. Now, see, Google thought, okay, we'll limit our operations to just, America, how, where would they be, right? If they actually
Yeah.
considered space for if they actually considered space for companies to mimic a Google and work in do another Google in India, do another Google in Africa, in Australia. How
Indeed.
would that make sense? Because someone else would have thought bigger and eventually come and driven these guys out as well. So
Exactly.
you need to be
Exactly.
yeah. So these
Look.
are things that build a company to where they are. And now we were also just before the show we were talking about how you need to be customer obsessed. Now if I was
Yes.
I don't really understand the technicals. I'd say I'm not an expert in the technical conversation here, but if you're talking about how Android, for example, how they would sync better with apps, we were just talking about this.
Yes, we were. Yeah.
If you are really customer obsessed, you would make that that it's such a simple thing to basically integrate with I'd say a different app, or you maybe all Android providers come, if they just come together and they agree to a similar type of algorithm. I mean, it's give and take there, because you're exposing a couple of things. But if all Android phones, I'd say, come together and come with this consistent algorithm, with a consistent code for their apps or their functions, if they come together with similar, whoever comes up with the best camera comes up with the best camera. Whoever comes up with the best screen, retina displays, they add that, and they come up with just one product, and then you compare that to Apple. I'm pretty sure Android would win at the end of the day. Given that the guys, this algorithm or this code, it basically thinks better with given that it syncs better with. Are we good?
Yeah. You're here. You're moving properly.
Right.
Sorry for the technical difficulties there, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. So now coming back to understanding if these guys would do this, I'm pretty sure they'd wipe out Apple in their marketplace, and also make sure that given that they would stay consistent in terms of innovation.
Do you know what? I just want to quickly.
Customer obsessed again. Sorry, Kings. Just one more sec. But being customer obsessed again. If these guys are going to, if Apple, now we were talking about Google, Facebook, these guys. If we were talking about how they are looking at running their operations in Hong Kong. Your customer there, your initial customer there is Hong Kong, right? Is the government or the legislature. How are you going to adapt to them? Just like McDonald's adapted to India, they came out with fish, they came out with chicken. They have so many other things, right? And they eventually came up with some type of a Delhi kind of customized Indian food. That
I
mean, they customize their food according to whichever area that is. So it's you might make a couple of mistakes at the beginning, but then it gives you a learning curve advantage in the future.
Yeah, exactly. One thing I wanted to quickly touch on was the conversation we had prior to when we actually prior to when we went live. So when we were talking about the Android phones and algorithms and how they'd be able to piece everything together, being able to make sure that the phone is proper. You said that if every single Android company had come together and said this is the algorithm that we're going to stick to, so that everything looks proper the way that it should, from camera down to processing speed, everything that nowadays, like today's Android has a problem with being able to use on certain apps. You said that it would definitely, without a doubt, go straight ahead of Apple, like by a mile more time. I agree mainly because I know I've had this conversation with so many different people, and I know everyone disagrees with me. But when you go down to the specifications and actually look towards the technology behind the phone, not just what you can see directly with your eyes, like if you actually do know what the phone holds, like what it's capable of doing, then you'd know that an Android phone, depending on which one it is, an Android phone is definitely a lot faster and more productive than an iPhone itself. and also a lot more free. Like it's definitely a lot more open for you to be able to explore so many different possibilities within an Android phone. With an iPhone, one thing I have noticed is that you are tied down to using certain things. You can't necessarily go too far out, if you know what I mean. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I've learned that in past time as well, that you can't really venture out too far whenever it comes to iPhone. There's only a certain amount of space that you can actually go so far, that will actually allow to go so far, and then from that point it's like, yeah, you can't really explore any further than that. It's almost like a barrier. So yeah.
No,
Other than that,
I'm with you 100% on that.
mm,
I mean, you're only there are limits to whatever it is, and
mm,
here we're talking about giants.
yeah,
We're talking about market experts in terms of marketing experts. For Oppo, for Huawei to come to the point where they
yeah,
are. These guys
yeah,
are basically making curved screens. You can basically fold these screens, and
yeah,
the
yeah.
innovation is. I mean, competition is good. Don't get me wrong, but you know, because if not for this, they won't come up with so many creative ideas. If they were comfortable with where they are, they would really go into the idea of, okay, how can we really do better? Okay, but in the lines of, okay, so these guys have a curved edge. Why don't we come with a folded screen? These guys have uh, you know, these guys have two cameras. Why don't we come up with five cameras? This is basically the competition that they have. And you've seen phones, the S20 Pro, right? Is that the S20
um
Max, right?
Yeah, the S21, that's the most recent one that's come out now. I think it has about five cameras behind
Yeah,
it,
it has about
something
five
along that
cameras. I
lines.
mean, it's
Yeah,
like looks like a what's the looks like an octopus arm
yeah,
on the phone.
yeah, yeah. It's like a
uh,
spider. It's like a spider. It's just got loads of eyes, like
exactly. Yeah,
literally.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, you
But-
see the back of the phone, you're like, what is that? Right? But like super zoom. I've seen some crazy zoom on this thing. Like,
yeah.
huh?
I think I even remember there was one video. Someone stood at the top of like a really high building, and he was able to zoom into like the next building, which was about I don't know how many, I don't know how, probably about 1,000 feet, 2,000 feet out, and he
Yeah.
was still able to get a clear shot of what was so far ahead of him. And it
And
was
these
just
phones are
crazy.
just like this thin, right?
Yeah, yeah,
This I don't know, man.
like
Like
stupidly
this
thin,
tech would
stupidly
have
thin.
just been only I don't know. It would have only been a dream at some point, but now
Mm,
it's reality. We only I'd say maybe I'm just thinking in terms of technical things.
mm,
Since I work in the industry also, with one lens maybe it goes only a certain distance, but then with the other it goes another distance, and it
yeah.
keeps adding up like that. It's like one of those telescopes you see in the movie that these guys
Yeah,
basically extend.
yeah,
So
yeah. Do you
yeah,
know, I never thought of that. Maybe that could be the reason why there's so many lenses, so that it's able
yeah,
to
that is.
change between. I never thought of it that way. That's
Yeah.
actually a good way to look at it now. So,
And you see the point
wow.
0.5 lens on the you see the wide lens on the iPhone. That's
Yeah.
those are the ones where you get the three lenses, right? So there's a reason you have the third lens. Yeah.
I see. Okay, it makes a lot more sense now why the camera looks the way it does. Although it is quite odd. I was trying to understand who really came up with the design for that. But now I understand. Now I get it. See, if you had someone put into perspective for me earlier back then I would have said, okay, cool, it makes sense. But back then when I looked at the phone, I thought, hang on a moment. The phone's a
What's the
bit,
point of all this?
yeah, it's a bit weird. Oh, yeah.
We're back. We're back.
Ah,
For me, it's like it froze for me, but I don't know if I was the one stuck. Honestly. Um,
yeah,
yeah.
but I'm just glad that with technology, even we're still, as we've actually just touched on technology just now. I don't know. We keep speaking about this every single time we get onto the stream together, and I keep saying it. Technology just keeps on surprising us every single time we
Every time,
take a
every time.
step further. Like
Absolutely.
from AR goggles to now figuring out why there's so many lenses on a single phone. So
Absolutely.
yeah, like
It's super interesting. I mean,
mm,
because if you look at any industry, people, it's not like people do it for the sake of it. The
yeah,
ones that are successful, there's reasons as to why they go so far. And it's I've been in sales for at least 8 years, and what I've come to see is that with each industry, in a
Yeah.
successful performer, they've got some passion for it, and with passion comes innovation, and with innovation takes a lot of research, understanding, and then making it fun, making new products. Now imagine if mobile phones, imagine the time where mobile phones came without cameras. For it to come with a camera in the first place, that was an innovation, that was a step into innovation. And things like that. Now let's say 15 to 20 years ago, I'd say, yeah, about 20 years ago, if someone said that they were working at Apple or Samsung, it wouldn't have been too fun. But now,
Yeah.
now
Yeah.
if you work at these places, you're considered super cool, or
Of course. Of course. And
fully relevant or whatever.
yeah, I feel as though, like, obviously back then you said you would think, like, some people would think it's not that fun, because technology was just pretty much flip phones and like big back TVs, and
Nokia block.
yeah, like it was just so binary, and now looking at all of these technology companies, it's not even just a case of being cool and stuff, but then it's like thinking about how you're allowing your creativity to just run wild, because no matter what type of idea you bring forward, it won't be considered a bad idea, because in today's day and age, technology is taking some of the maddest leaps that we've ever seen before. So realistically, whatever idea that you have may not even be terrible. Like, I don't know if you've seen the Samsung phone that was released with I think it was released with the 20 or the 21, but no, it was released with the 21. When the 21 came out, they also released another one that was the Samsung flip phone. It was all touchscreen,
yeah.
but it could stretch out, so it would start out the size of my phone as it is now. Then you'd flip it open and then become bigger, so it'd be like this. And honestly, I don't know if you've ever seen those videos, or like, those fake Instagram videos where they'll show you something completely outrageously unbelievable, something that's unrealistic.
You get these on Snapchat as well. You get fake renders, or
Yeah.
imaginary renders. But
yeah, like you get those really.
You watch MKPHD?
No, I've never heard of MKPHD. What's it?
Marcus Brownlee.
Marcus Brownlee. I've heard the name before.
Yeah, I'm sure you've seen some of his content. But yeah, I'll just send you a link of his. You need to. He's like the unbox therapy dude. You need the unbox therapy dude, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
so
I don't know the unbox therapy dude, but I've definitely watched a bunch of unboxings on YouTube. Like, I've seen a few different people.
I'm sending you a couple of links right now to see who the guy is. I'm pretty sure you'll know who it is. But till then, ladies and gentlemen, just stay tuned right here on Relax Radio. We'll be breaking down the last bit of the challenges that Google and Facebook, also other tech companies, are facing when approaching the Hong Kong market, and where they're looking at moving with this, because chances are they might have to quit all operations in Hong Kong if their security laws are to be followed.
Indeed. And well, one thing I'd like to see is how this all turns out in the end. So hopefully they will come down to grounds of understanding, and just
Absolutely. I mean, you don't know if is Hong Kong or is China making their own Google? What's the story there? Let's find out. You already have WeChat that has basically all social media, work on app for China.
Yeah.
Maybe they make a
Google. Yeah. Maybe they make a Google that pretty much limits all their searches.
I mean, they have 1 billion people there alone. So if they, make it for them, that's a pretty significant market. Just like Didi we spoke about.
That's true. That's a very good point. Yeah, that is true. And nonetheless,
stay tuned right here, ladies and gentlemen. Before we conclude with our last talk segment, we're running into a quick couple of videos of who we are. We'll be right back. Now, there's a lot of conversation around who pays more taxes, if it is the rich or if it is the poor, right? But when you are basically going out and during a day, you go to a restaurant, you have to pay taxes there. You buy a car, you have to pay taxes there. So why is it even a conversation that, the rich pay less taxes or the poor pay more taxes? Why is it a conversation like that?
Because it's true that the rich generally pay less tax. A rich person walks into a Tesco's or a Sainsbury's, they're not going to get a different bill than another person, right? They're still going to pay the same VAT on those goods. They're still going to pay the same thing. So that's all the same. However, the differences come in if you can pay yourself from your own company, you can structure it in a way that you pay less income tax through paying a bit of salary, paying dividends and so forth, and then also deferring income. Also, your pension payments or contributions can be different. So that increases your tax sort of gap, if you want to use it that way. Where a PAYE person just gets paid salary and bonus. And now those are the most highly taxed sources of income in the UK, definitely, in the UK. We've seen it, right? If an owner of a large public traded company does something wrong, irrelevant of what that company does or how valuable that company is, the stock generally falls into a pool of nothing, right? Because in a public company where the stock is traded openly on the stock exchange, the value of that stock is driven by supply and demand, it's driven by emotion, it's driven by news, it's driven by quite a lot of variables over and above the actual accounting or total net worth of that company. I mean, we've seen it, right? If an owner of a large public traded company does something wrong, irrelevant of what that company does or how valuable that company is, the stock generally falls into a pool of nothing, right? And the company may still have value, it may still be doing quite a good thing.
But now, if you say to a child, if I went up to a child and said, you've had one to forget, God, there'd be an inquest. Why did you reject my son? Oh, I haven't rejected your son.
I want to talk about, how the generation gap, how much it's changed, especially when you check the youth nowadays in comparison, to people back in the day.
I'd say when I was younger, it was more disciplined. Not now.
Comparison to now.
not at all. Not now. You know, the way things are nowadays, the younger generation, you seem that they can't accept the word no. If that makes sense.
They can't accept rejection, essentially, is all you're trying to say.
Yeah, they can't accept the word no. So if you, how did I do? Or you didn't do very well, and they get upset, you know. And when I was a youngster, my father used to say to me, because I used to be sport mad when I was very young, well, I still am sport mad, but like participating in different sports. And if I had a bad game, for example, he might say to me, "You had one to forget." That's it.
Your dad sounds like a smart guy. I mean, yeah, that's the real fact of the matter. Yeah.
You know, he said to me, "You had one to forget. Get over it," and that was it. So I dust myself down and do it again. But now, if you say to a child, if I went up to a child and said, "You've had one to forget," God, there'd be an inquest. An inquest. Me. Why did you reject my son? Oh, I haven't rejected your son. Or daughter. I've just told them that they need to buck their ideas up.
That's the truth right there. I mean, if you think about it, if you check the generations, like right now in the US as well, I've seen a lot of these things as well. In the UK, you know, you get medals for participation. But what's the point? What are you trying to? Yeah, what's the point? Either you win or you lose. People are so afraid to put that whole notion of losing. You know, when it comes to right now, the generation gap is just crazy. You know how much. A lot has changed. Social media has taken control of our lives, and we don't even realize it anymore. We're crippled because of it.
That's absolutely right, Nick. Because, as you said, you know, nowadays it seems that you get rewarded for failure. You know, for the life of me, Nick, I can't get my head around that. Perhaps I'm just getting old and morbid. I don't know. I just can't get my head around how you could be rewarded for failure.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back for the final segment of The Buzz. You are currently tuned in with your hosts, DJ Kings and Tim. Everything business, everything entrepreneurship, everything finance, and most importantly, everything technology. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, this is The Buzz.
That is right. Everyone now stay tuned right here because we're talking about tech when it comes to Hong Kong and China and how you know tech businesses are facing challenges approaching these countries now. We thought these guys were basically unstoppable. We thought they were basically, you know, they could just innovate, do whatever they want, and you know, not reduce their value because people depend on these too much already. But yeah, coming into it, just before we quickly wrap up, you know, in reality, intermediaries already have noticed takedown in regimes that basically place to deal with, you know, doxing content such as requests that will be responded, you know, with mundane without any delay, right? And when you're talking about how the first letter in the Wall Street Journal said that the AIC had, you know, a doxing concern, this was a serious problem that the AIC basically agreed doxing, you know, agreed to when doxing was a concern, and the importance of privacy, the protection of personal information, you know, talking about how there can be a curtailing, an effect on a curtailing free expression and you know, proportionality. Because, you know, now my personal take is with China and these guys, you know, this gives a rise to legitimate concerns. And, you know, when it comes to doxing, if you're looking at what doxing is basically how you you know, you search for, you know, publish or private and identify information about a particular individual on the internet, and then typically, you know, make sure that now this content for one is ideally, you know, malicious content. So the legitimate reason that that Hong Kong is giving towards, you know, blocking these companies out is the doxing concern. But Facebook didn't really immediately respond to a request for a comment, but Twitter had referred to the questions of the AIC, and Google had basically declined to comment. Now, a sweeping crackdown on opposition and dissent by Hong Kong authorities accelerated with the implementation of the Beijing conversation, and then moving down to, there were more than 10,000 people that had been arrested. So basically, with the additional Hong Kong government international crisis, these had rejected basically international criticism of the crackdown. Instead of vowing to further strengthen laws, Hong Kong had basically consistently rejected the international criticisms of its crackdown.
Indeed, yeah.
What's your take before we head right out? Do you think it's because Hong Kong doesn't want to expose the ways that in which if they give, there is possibility for free maybe freedom of speech there, right? Through these
Yeah.
digital channels, and if these, I'd say, how Korea for one. How North Korea, for one, they don't have internet. They have only
Yeah.
one. They're very limited in terms of international exposure.
Yeah, they keep everything literally so squeezed and tight. Yeah.
And
So the society they can't really venture out of what is within Korea. They only keep everything inside of North Korea. Yeah.
absolutely, yeah. And to talk about how the cases in, that had. Basically, just long story short, what's your take on if the government is trying to limit freedom of speech through these channels to the rest of the world? What's your take on that? Do you agree or do you disagree?
I feel as though yes, they are trying to limit that because if they were to allow more of these channels to reach the rest of the world, they feel as though they're going to lose control over the power they have over the people. This is is this Hong Kong or China? Hong Kong also a communist country as well? Just so we're clear.
Yeah.
Okay, so with Hong
they
Kong,
were trying to change the laws and the legislature, but last year they had serious problems with protests, and to a point where the police started abusing the country. So
yeah. In that case, I believe that yes, they do want to limit those channels mainly because they don't want I feel as though that they will fear losing control. I feel that they will lose control. They fear that they will lose control over what they have so far, which is the people and what they are able to see, what they are capable of being able to view, what they're allowed to see and what they don't allow them to see. I feel as though I think that if they allow those channels to continue to, be able to pass through to around the world, people within the country will notice that, hang on, wait, other countries are able to operate like this completely free of their own charge. They don't need to worry about this over their shoulder, or if they're doing something wrong, like people can do whatever they like. Why is this country like this? And then there may even be an outrage, and that's how the whole government gets overturned. They don't want to lose that power, in my opinion. So that's the reason why I feel that they have limited those channels so that they don't lose that control. They can continue to have the country operate the way that they want it to. So in terms of basically treating them like robots, you see this, you do this, and there's no other way about it. And if you don't do this, this is what's going to happen, So meanwhile, obviously everywhere else, like, there's just that freedom. You have the opportunity to do whatever it is that you like. Obviously there are laws, but you have your own free will to make that decision whether you choose to do it or not.
Yeah. You're talking about how people will basically. I mean, if this happened in the States, right? Or, the people would have voted. I mean, there's no freedom of speech, in my opinion, and you're limiting people's free will, starting with speech. So I mean, they are definitely hiding something, in my opinion. So
indeed. I feel as though there's a lot that we don't know.
Exactly. Coming into basketball. So your team is basically in the lead right now.
I can't be happier. I couldn't be happier. Chris Paul dropped 30 plus points. I couldn't be happier. And
Dude, his game, he played a sick game today.
Even though I didn't get to watch it, I saw the highlights and I completely screamed. I was just happy, and I even saw Antetokounmpo playing as well. So I was thinking, so he even played. He actually put this up against him too. I was ecstatic. I was over the moon. I was overjoyed. Honestly, if Chris Paul wins this ring, it's on.
Excited.
Huh?
LeBron seemed to be pretty excited about it as well. He tweeted, 1 down, 3 to go. Everyone's super happy for the guy. I'm happy for him as well, but I'm just biased, man. I'm for Giannis, and
I understand. I understand how you feel about the Bucks, but
I respect that. I respect that. I mean, it comes down to a point where, for one, Giannis, if Giannis wins this chip, all the 3 brothers would have won the chip.
That would look amazing. That would absolutely look. That's literally a family of champions. That would look amazing.
These guys are just, I don't know. They're on some mad flex right now.
Yeah. And the thing is, they have every right to be, because they've achieved everything that they wanted. They deserve it. Whereas if CP3 gets it, I feel as though that literally goes without saying. The whole basketball nation will praise CP3 because he has deserved it for years to come.
Yeah, he's been working real hard. He's been working too hard. You can see how locked in he is. He's got some focus right now. Even though they won the game, no reaction whatsoever. I'm sure he's gonna, given that they win it, that's when we're actually gonna see emotion. The minute the last buzzer of the last game. So I mean, the Bucks, for one, have been losing the first game of almost every round.
Every single one of their playoff series. I believe so, but that's the thing. One thing I like about the Bucks is that one thing I like about the Bucks is the fact that even though they lose one, he's gone. Oh, you're back with me again. Okay. Yeah. You froze up on me, Tim.
Oh man. Yeah,
but one thing I do like about the Bucks, one thing I like about them is the fact that even though they take one loss, the way they come back the second time, they always come back harder, and they'll always make it more difficult for the team. So even if they were to lose again, the gap gets smaller, and then again they go even harder, and then that's when it becomes an interesting series.
It shows a lot of character, right?
Yeah.
And so the first 2 games are at Phoenix, and the second 2 games are at Milwaukee, and then it starts switching game on game. So we'll have to see. We'll know on Friday what the next result is.
Oh, I'm so excited. I feel. Do you know what? If the Phoenix Suns win, if Chris Paul does win, I feel like I'm just gonna have to pop a bottle of champagne because I want to celebrate too.
Just like there's some bets maybe.
Yeah. I might just go out and buy one just to celebrate with him, like I won as well.
Absolutely. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna have to wrap for this talk segment, but we'll be back tomorrow. Make sure you're tuned in to Relaks Radio. Don't miss a beat. We'll be I'll be talking with Chris from 12 to 1, but Kings will be joining in from 1 to 2 p.m. tomorrow. You're tuned in on Relaks Radio again, ladies and gentlemen. We're breaking down everything business, tech, entrepreneurship. This is the place to be. This is the place to update yourself. Stay tuned before we head into the next talk segment. Good afternoon.
Indeed.